Hi there, my friend. Today we are going to be taking a really close look at Abeka's 8th grade language arts curriculum. I am going to show you what are the topics that are being covered here and what are the books that come along with it. Now, the next 3 videos are all going to be focusing on an in-depth look at this curriculum. So today is Language Arts Series, then we're going to be looking at the Arithmetic series, followed by the Science and the History. So in Abeka's 8th grade language arts homeschool curriculum, there are 3 components to it. We have literature, grammar and composition, and vocabulary, spelling, and poetry. Each one comes with a student book like this, okay? And then a quizzes and test book like this. So I'm going to go in every single one of them just so you can kind of get an idea of what is the content in each and every one. Like, what are the literature selections? What does the grammar and composition look like? And what does vocabulary, spelling, and poetry look like? And what is that kind of like structure or layout for each one of them? First, let's take a look at the literature. So for the literature, here is the anthology. And here is a test with the speed and comprehension quizzes. So in this particular one, you're going to see at the beginning on the table of contents, each unit is separated by a certain title or a certain theme. There is a total of 12 units in the 8th grade book. The first unit being Realms of Adventure. And you're going to notice like there's a mixture of poetry and nonfiction, and then different selections from different literature pieces all throughout. So it's not just all fiction literature or all nonfiction or all poetry. Is just a nice mixture of each one. So for the first one, for Unit 1, we have Realms of Adventure. And you're going to see like From Places, Courage, From the Ransom of Red Chief, Linderberg, From the Book of Courage, Voyagers, Traveler, A Glimpse of the Pony Express, My Kingdom, Victoria, The Oregon Trail, and An Unfortunate Lily Maid. And then that's from Anne of Green Gables. So they are often selections from bigger works or works that are usually ones that are pretty well known. The second unit is Places from Long Ago. And here are some of the works that are included in that. My Father's World, Where I Learn, A Place of Service, Christmas in the Heart, At the Corner of Curiosity and Suspense, Where the Animals Are, Upon the Mountains, By the Sea, In the Realm of Imagination, and Homeward Bound. Now, if you're doing the curriculum straight through, you will actually make it through the entirety of this book if you actually follow the academy or the parent-led suggestions. Now, if you want to be a little bit more free-spirited, you can always kind of pick and choose and change things around as to whatever the literature is for your child. I mean, you are the parent educator, so you and your child can kind of select, but we usually make it through, okay? So let me give you an example of what Unit 1 actually looks like. So this is Unit 1, and you're going to see Realms of Adventure here, From Places. So this is from that particular poem, and that's that poem over here. And then it has Think It Through, little questions to think about based on what you just read. And then it lets you know what pretty much the idea or the element of literature that you are going to be focusing. So in this particular case is theme. This is another poem, Courage. And since this one does not say from, that means this is the entirety of the poem, Courage. And then some questions in the bottom just to think about. So From the Ransom of Red Chief. So this is a selection from that particular story. And it just gives you like a little background. On the bottom, you are going to see words with their definitions. Climax, it talks about that element of literature. So that's this story right here. And then, it kind of highlights the climax. It's this right here. So it really does help when it comes to instruction and being able to identify those elements in literature as you read. And then this one was one to actually check your speed with. So it had a speed check and then some questions to think about and a little bit about the author. Lindbergh from the book of Courage, and this one is a nonfiction one. So this is nonfiction text right here. And then here, another check your speed that you can go ahead and check that and think it through. And then Voyagers is a poem. All right, it goes through here. Again, some think it through, meet the author. Travel, poetry right here. Okay, again about the author. A Glimpse of the Pony Express from Roughing It, and Mark Twain was the one who wrote that. And that is a story right there. And then another poem. So it's really heavy, so there is a lot of poetry in here, which I feel like analyzing poetry is one of the most challenging things. So the fact that there is so much exposure to poetry, it really makes this text truly rich. Another one, another poem here, another poem here, okay? Another poem here. And then this is Anne of Green Gables. So this is a fictional story. So an unfortunate Lily Maid. And here they're talking about plot and setting. And then again, it points it out as you're reading. Setting. So it's kind of guided through. And then that's the end of Unit 1. So that is what that looks like. And then throughout, you're going to see very similar layout. Okay. There's a drama in here. It explains the drama. A Tale of Two Cities. Okay. So a nice variety of literature in here. Okay. So this one over here. All right. So a lot of good mixture. And just so you can see throughout, get a little glimpse of what's in it. Okay. Now, along with this is the test and speed comprehension quizzes. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. One of the things we stopped once our son made it to 7th grade was the speed checks, those speed quizzes, just because once he was done in 6th grade, they used to have like these little speed and comprehension booklets. He really enjoyed those. They were nice, short, quick, and those were okay. But when it came to doing them in here, I really didn't care so much about the speed that he was reading something. I really was more concerned about the comprehension. Like, is he comprehending what he's reading? So to me, that was more important at this rate than speed. So that's the only reason why I stopped them. But if you want to continue on, here is the chart for the speed and comprehension, and you see quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4. So there are 3 per quarter. So if you still want to do that, you can go ahead. Again, that was just an adjustment that we made in our homeschooling because based on what my son really truly needed, we just didn't feel like the speed checks were, that necessary anymore. So in this particular case, quiz 1 is based on A Glimpse of the Pony Express. And that's going to be the speed rate score that you're going to get, words per minute, as well as the comprehension. Okay, so that's quiz 1 for that. And then at the end of Unit 1 is Test 1. So in this particular case, Test 1, Unit 1, and these are just questions about all the literature that was read in Unit 1. So there's matching, short answer, multiple choice, and there's an essay that goes along with it, which I'm definitely a big fan of this one. In this particular case, is based on Lindbergh. It says, from Lindbergh, illustrate 3 difficulties that Charles Lindbergh experienced throughout his transatlantic flight and how he overcame them. And this is the space for them to write their essay. Now, something to keep in mind is that all this kind of intertwines. So in here it says to write an essay in paragraph form. This goes with this. Okay, so I'm going to show you in a minute how what you do here preps them for this over here. Okay, Unit 2, then you have a speed and comprehension quiz, and this one is on a pilot's needs, and then you have the whole unit quiz the same way with an essay questioned over here, and you have to do it in paragraph form. So every unit has 1 speed check, and it has 1 unit assessment that goes along with everything that was read on that particular unit. And it continues the same thing all throughout over here, okay? So that is what those tests and quizzes look like. Now, looking into the grammar is grammar and composition. And I feel like these maintain a pretty similar format than in all the years before. So it's easier to grasp. They're not really starting anything from scratch. If anything, it's building upon whatever they were doing the year before. So my son does pretty good with this. So when we look at the table of contents, here are the grammar units. There are a total of 12 grammar units. There are a total of 7 composition sections, okay? So manuscript form, capitalization, punctuation, the sentence, verbs and their uses, nouns and their uses, pronouns and their uses, adjective and their uses, adverbs and their uses, prepositions, conjunctions, and interjections, sentence structure, and improving your writing style. Now, you are going to see that some of these have something that says a writer's corner. So when you look at, there's unit 1, which is manuscript form. Manuscript form is just this, okay? Like whenever you have to do abbreviations and when to use a number written in word form instead of number form. Okay, but when we go to the capitalization section over here, you're going to see that there is one that says essay. Okay, so that is peppered in throughout. So when we go over here in the essay section, all right, it shows you the steps for essay writing and then how to do it over here, and it gives you a sample. So a sample essay question and answer, and it gives you the question. Okay, it tells you to give examples, relate, clues, and the main points. So this is very similar to the questions that they encounter over here. So very early on is showing them how to do that, preparing them so that they know how to write their essay paragraphs in their tests. So in the sample question, it says, O. Henry is known for his surprise endings. In The Ransom of Red Scarf, O. Henry leaves clues for the reader that a surprise ending is coming. In a well-known written paragraph, illustrate at least 3 clues that O. Henry gives that the ending will not turn out as expected, and relate how those clues connect to the actual ending of the story. Here are all the different steps, okay? And then here is the sample essay answer. So it talks about the introductory topic sentence, which is pretty much restating the question. The first illustration, it highlights the transitional words, the examples of the illustration. So pretty much the analyzing part of this. The second one, and then the third one, and the explanation, and then pretty much the concluding part, the connections in the concluding part of that essay. So then it has them do an exercise where they can write a paragraph, not on a particular text, but on simple topics like compare and contrast a vacation in the mountains and a vacation in the lake. Define and give 3 examples of importance of good sportsmanship, or differentiate between animals and birds. So these are things that kids have a good background knowledge on, that they can write a paragraph using that format. So that's the exercise that they have, and then that makes them ready for the unit test over here, the very first one. All right. So through there, you're going to see different writers' corners, and in the table of contents, you can kind of see which units those are embedded in. And then the composition sections are typically towards the back. So the writing process, the paragraph, the summary, making an outline, book reports, research paper, and library. Now, book reports and research papers, and making an outline and summary, and now, all of these things were things that were touched in 7th grade as well. Okay, so, and research papers, if you've been doing Abeka, your kid has been doing them probably since 4th or 5th grade, if I remember correctly. Book reports have been done since the 3rd grade. So these are just now elevated a little bit more so that so that they're completed at grade level. So let's take a look at the composition sections in page 275 right here. Okay. So in the back is the areas for the composition. Okay. So the writing process right here, the paragraph, developing a paragraph, okay? And then it has the exercises that you can do with them. The summary, summarizing a long selection, writing summaries. Here's this exercise. You look at this, and then here's where they write their summary. Making an outline, which I feel is super important, especially like when you're taking notes and stuff. And it gives examples of those. So these are all things, the book reports, giving oral reports. Okay, so all of that is embedded throughout planning your paper, all that fun jazz. Okay, rewriting your paper, all of that is in the back over here. And then when you go further back is the handbook, in case you have to look at some things. Over here is just additional help. Okay? Now, when it comes to the quizzes and tests for grammar and composition, here we go. All right, we have quiz 1. This is on manuscript form, the short answer. These are pretty much answers that the student has to fill. So write in order the 4 steps of the writing process. So they're going to have to write that down, and that is what each one of those answers are. Quiz 2, it goes with unit 2. Again, a short answer where they have to fill in the blank. Test 1 is based on unit 1 through 2 and composition sections 1 through 3. Okay, so it just shares on the top what is all this based on. Okay, and just to give you an idea of what that looks like. All right, quiz 3, very similar format as in previous years. Okay, there's that. Then it goes through all the way through the end. Okay. Now, if you've been doing Abeka in previous years, a very similar layout. Our daughter just did 2nd grade, and so it keeps the same format throughout. So over here you have the spelling and vocabulary list, 1 through 28. It has the poetry in the back and then reference material in the back. So let me just show you what the first list looks like. There is a total of 20 words that pretty much are given to them. However, they're only tested on 12. So if you're looking for a differentiation for your student based on your student needs, let's say they, struggle a little bit with something, I would only focus on the 12 that are being tested. So that's just a differentiation that as a parent, you can do. But these are all 20 of them, compound words and words with suffixes. And then this over here is the vocabulary. And then here are exercises that they will do based on that. You get the spelling words, you get some definitions, you get the exercise with the spelling, you get the exercise with the vocabulary. All right, so all the lists are like that. Now, these are the poems all in the back. There are a total of 9 poems. And this is what it looks like. Okay, so footprints in the sand, my native land, sunrise and sunset, crossing the bar. Okay, Captain, oh Captain, my Captain, the flag goes by, be true. And those are the poems, okay? Now, when it comes to reference materials, these are like, the 4 spelling rules that you need to master, keys to good spelling, how to solve analogy questions, prefixes, roots, and suffixes charts. So, 4 major rules to master I before E except after C or when sounding like long A. Now, another thing I want to note over here is when there's an exception to the rule, let me see, where is it? When there's an exception to the rule, it'll tell you, see? An asterisk indicates an exception to the rule. And when there is something else to it, it'll also tell you in the bottom. You see, this one says, a superscript number after a word indicates the spelling rule on page 86, which applies. An asterisk indicates an exception to the rule. Okay, so if it has like that number right here, fiercely, okay, that is one of the rules in the back. Then for the vocabulary, spelling, and poetry quizzes is very standard. So the first 6 are dictated. The next ones, this one goes up to 13. Oops, sorry, I was wrong. I thought it was all of them 12. I was wrong. So you have to misspell the word and then spell it correctly on the side, so it's still spelling. And then the last ones are vocabulary. Okay, quiz 2. This one is from 1 through 12, okay? The correct spelling and then vocabulary. Quiz 3. Okay, 12 are spelling, the rest are vocabulary. They have to match the vocabulary to the definition. The dictation, pretty much you say the word that is being dictated, and over here you correct the spelling, or you write the correct spelling. Sometimes they have whole unit ones. Let me see. Oh, here we go. Okay, so this one is a review quiz 1, so lists 1 through 7, so it's cumulative. So dictation, spelling, and then vocabulary here and vocabulary here. Okay, and then again the same format, 1 through 12. So I guess only the first one was 13. 1 through 12 is the spelling portion, and then the rest through 20 is vocabulary. Okay, so that is what the 8th grade vocabulary language arts series looks like with Abeka. I am going to be going through the rest of the curriculum and just sharing with you by subjects, because I know that when we get to the older grades, we are more focused probably in, I want to do this subject from here and this subject there. We're doing 8th grade completely with Abeka, just like we've done ever since we started homeschooling. So I'll be sharing with you one for what does the math look like, one about what does science and social studies look like together, just so you have an idea of what those subjects are like.